Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. In this video, we'll be learning about arrays in Java. So let's begin. Okay, so we'll begin with the question, what is an array? An array is a collection of items of same data type stored at contiguous memory allocation. So we can understand this by the picture here, which is a sample representation of what an array is. Okay, so if you see here, we have an array and whose length is 10 and the length of the array is 10. So by this we mean we will have 10 blocks here. Okay, so which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if the size of the array was 5, then we will have 5 blocks. If the size of the array is 4, then we have 4 blocks. And you also see the numbers here on top. These numbers are termed as indices. So we make use of these indices to grab or to access the value that you will be having in each of these blocks. Suppose if you want to get the value of this block, then you can access the element that you have in this block with the help of these indices. Okay, the index number 8 will help you fetch the value of this block. So basically you can understand it this way. The first block has a number associated with it, which is 0. So by 0, you mean you're referencing to the first block. And the number 1 has a reference with the second blocks. Likewise, if you want to have the number for this block is going to be 2. The number for fourth block is going to be 3. So each block has a number associated with it. And the purpose of these numbers is nothing but to help you access the values of the blocks. Okay. So we'll have more clarifications on the same as we proceed further. Okay, since we have a basic understanding of what an array is and how an array is created, what is the representation? We've seen a sample representation in the previous slide. Let's understand now, why do we need an array? So we'll understand this with an example here. If we would want to store two numbers, then we would create two integer variables and store the values as highlighted below. So you want to create two numbers, two integer numbers, then you can do the same here. So we're creating the first variable, storing the first number, creating the second variable, storing the second number. But if the need is to store 100 integer variables, then do we create 100 variables of integer type? Do we do that? I think if we do that, I think it will be waste of time and it's more time consuming and it's a tedious process. So to avoid that or to get rid of that, array comes into picture. So array becomes a savior in such cases. Instead of declaring 100 integer variables, we can just declare an array of size 100. Okay. In the previous slide, we had array of size 10. So we had 10 blocks. So now if you want 100 integer variables, then you can declare size 100. So we will have 100 blocks. Okay, we will have 100 blocks like this. We will have 100 blocks. So that refers to array. So we've understood what is the purpose of array. So if you want to store the numbers in huge quantities or in huge size, then we can go for arrays instead of declaring numerous variables, integer types, which can be tedious, which is more time consuming, and also not a recommended approach towards programming. In such cases, we make use of arrays. So to store a group or collection of integer variables, collection of strings or collection of float numbers or whatever the data type you can make use of, we go with arrays. So things would be more clear as we proceed further. Now we've understood what is an array, why do we need it. So if you want to use it, how do we use it? This slide gives the instance, gives the reference to the same. Below is the syntax to use an array in Java. So if you want to use an array, you need to create an array, and this is how you make use of an array in Java. So here, if you see, we first specify what type of array do you need. If you want to store group of numbers or n number of integers, then you make use of an integer array. So you create an array that can only hold integer values. That can be 1, 2, 3, and so on. But you cannot have AB. You cannot have a string here. Okay. You cannot have AB or BB because arrays can only store homogeneous data types. So if you create an integer array, you can only store integer values. If you want to store string values, then you have the declaration here. So here you're creating a string array. So the first thing that you have to mention or specify to the compiler is what type of array do you need. So if you want integer array, you specify it like this. If you want a string array, you specify it like this. And if you want a float array, it could be this way. So float and then a square parenthesis. Okay, this is how you define the data type to the compiler. And the next thing that you mention here is the name of the array. So what name you want to give to the array. So this can be anything, but you need to follow the naming conventions. The Java provides a nomenclature for how you name the variables and the arrays. Okay, and then you make use of this new keyword, and again you end it with this. And the number that you provide here is going to be the size of the array, so the blocks. Okay, so if you have 10, then you have 10 blocks, 100 refers to 100, and then 2 refers to 2. So depending on your need, you will specify the size for an array. So let's just summarize again. The first is going to be the data type, the second is going to be the name of the array, and this is a keyword that you need to include, and then this is going to specify the size. That's how you create. And the same process goes forth for the other data types, like we discussed float here. Similarly, for double, it will be double with a square bracket, and the same thing carries on for the other data types. Okay, now this is a sample code snippet for the array. Let's understand this. We have a class demo and a main method. Now in this line, we are creating an integer array because we've specified the type integer, and the name of the array is array1, and the size of the array is 4. Now let's just understand it this way. So this line in the memory creates an array having 4 blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, because the size here is 4. And what is the name given to this? Array1. That's the name. And we need to specify the indices because we need it to grab the values of each block. So we have 0, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So this line of code does this at the back end. Now we start with this for loop. For int I is equal to 0, I should be less than array1 dot length I plus plus. Now here you must be wondering of what this does. Array1 dot length is nothing but it is a built-in method that will help you get the length of the array. So here the length of the array is 4. Okay, so we are starting with 0. I is 0 initially, and we check whether I is less than the length of the array. The length of the array is 4. So is 0 less than 4, the condition is true. Therefore, we execute this piece of code, which is array1 of I is going to be I. So let's just understand this in in simple terms. Array1 of I, value of I now is 0. So let's just put 0 in place of I. And that is equal to I. Again, value of I is 0. So we substitute I with 0. Now, what does this piece of line mean? Array1 of 0 is going to be 0. Array1 of 0 is nothing but this block, the first block. Okay. If you specify array1 of 1, it will refer to this block. Array1 of 2 refers to this block. Array1 of 3 refers to this block. So if you want to provide a reference, you make use of such conventions or such lines of code. So you have array1 of 0, which means you're pointing towards this first block. Okay. So what are we doing here? Into this first block, put the value 0. That is what this line of code means. So let's just put it. So into the first block, we're putting the number 0. And then we're doing I plus plus here. So now I will become 1. Now again, we check if 1 is less than 4, which is true. So we again execute this line of code. Now this time, I value is 1. So instead of 0, we will have 1 here and we will have 1 here. So now we are making use, we are pointing at this block, array of 1, and we are putting the value 1. Okay, we're putting the value 1. Now the same proceeds again, I plus plus. Now the value of I is going to be 2. We change it here as well. So this will now be 2 and this will now be 2. By this, we are pointing to this block, okay, and we're putting the value 2. Array of 2 is equal to 2. Now, similarly, I plus plus 3. 3 is less than 4, so therefore array of 3 is equal to 3 this time. So we point to this block and we put the value 3. Then again, when you do I plus plus, I value becomes 4, and 4 less than 4 is not a right condition. It tends to be false. Thereby, we come out of this loop. So this loop is done. Then we move on to this loop. Now this loop is helping us. This loop is actually helping us to store the values into the array. So now the array is filled with values. Now if you want to see or get the values from the array, we make use of this for loop. Here again, the process is same. But here you see, we are not doing any assignment operator here. We are just doing array 1 of I, which means array 1 of I will point to this block. If it is 0, it will point to this block. If it is 1, it is going to point to this. For 2, it will point to this. For 3, it's going to point to the last block. That's how we proceed. Now system.out.println is going to print the values. So we again start from 0, and this is the condition. Now if you see here, 0, 0 less than 4. So we are getting the value of array 1 of 0, which is this. So the value gets printed in the console, 0. Then I plus plus, array of 1 gets printed to the console, 1. Okay, and then likewise array of 2 gets printed, then array of 3 gets printed. That is how you can store the values and you can access the values. Okay, this assignment operator is going to help you to put the values into the array, and just this piece of line without the assignment operator is going to get you it is going to get you the value of that particular block. Now we'll understand this more better when we run this code. So let's just try running the code. Yeah. So if you see here, this is the same code as we have in the presentation. Now if you run this code, you get these values 0, 1, 2, and 3. So you have these values in the array. This value is of the first block. This one is for the second block, for the third block, and for the fourth block. Okay, now let's get back to the presentation. Okay, now we've understood what is an array, what is the need of the array. Also, I've seen a sample program for the array. Now let's understand some of the key points associated with array. The first one is arrays are immutable, cannot expand in terms of size. Now, if you declare an array of size 4, you will only have 4 blocks in the array to store 4 integers. Now, again, if you want to store one more integer to the array, you cannot do it because you only have 4 blocks. If you want to do it, you need to create one more array. Okay, so once the size of the array is declared, you cannot expand that array or add or modify the array in terms of size. You cannot do it. You need to create one more array, a new array for any of such modifications. Then we have this second point, which says java.util.array provides several built-in methods for arrays such as sorting, searching, comparing to arrays, and many more. So we have a class array which is present in this package java.util. Now this provides several built-in methods for arrays. So if you want to sort an array, if you want to search a particular element in the array, you can directly make use of the built-in methods that this class provides instead of you hard coding the same. Then as we have seen, indexing is 0 based in arrays. So you cannot start with 1, you need to start with 0. Then array make use of the contiguous memory allocation. Like we have seen, the blocks, they were one after the other. So they are not non-contiguous. Rather, it follows a contiguous memory allocation pattern. Then array can only store homogeneous data types, right? So if you have declared an array of integer, you can only store integer values. You cannot combine it with string values or float values because a compiler will throw compile time error. Okay. This brings us to the end of the video. Thanks for watching the video. For more such videos, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video. Bye.